So that's us going. Shall I just start it off yet?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, look. It's quite bright in here, pardon me. Hi, guys. Welcome back to Brandon and my chat on the current World 15 of Rugby Union 2020. Obviously, during the pandemic still of the coronavirus lockdown. Hope you're all keeping safe and well and busy as best you can. But yeah, we did this podcast last week talking about what we thought our best backline was in the world right now. During the pandemic, and we're moving on to the forwards now. This podcast is out a wee bit later than we thought it might, just because of the various weeks have been busy and technical difficulties and all that. But anyway, how you doing, Brandon?
Yeah, really good. Fantastic to do another podcast to talk about the forwards. We did the backs, lots of controversial decisions, but we'll try and crack into these forwards. And let us know your teams in the comments as well.
Yeah, that sounds good. So starting with the front row, I don't have a sheet of that in front of me, but we'll just go with it. I'm going to try not rocking back and forth in my chair because I knew you got a complaint about that last time. Okay, front row. Start off with the props. Who would you go for? I went with Mako Vunipola at 1, even though towards the end of the Six Nations he excused himself, and I've gone for Frans Malherbe at 3, although you could have honourable mentions at 3. I think Tag Furlong and Van Son Kok are honourable mentions there. What about yourself?
I went with Mako in the number 1 shirt. I think he's been fantastic for England and for Saracens over the past few years. I think that he is probably streets ahead of anyone else really in that position. I was trying to think of players. I was going through the home nations, going then through the Southern Hemisphere, and nobody really stood out. I think Mako is a very modern prop. He's comfortable with the ball in hand. He's powerful though, and he's grown as a leader on the pitch as well. And having him on the pitch, you notice England played that much better. So for me, Mako Vunipola certainly into the team. And then in the number 3 shirt, again, Koch was someone that I did think about, a very powerful player, but I think Malherbe probably is in there. I couldn't really think of anyone else who really would contest with them. Again, it's very difficult to look past South Africa because they did win the World Cup. They won it in quite emphatic style, and they were dominant in all areas over the pitch. And so I think this team will have a lot of South Africans in it, but I think Malherbe has to go in the 3 shirts. So Mako and Malherbe in the 3 shirts. At hooker then, it's another South African. It's Malcolm Marx.
Yeah, I think we can both agree on this one. Absolutely.
Who else is there?
Well,
who else is there?
That's the thing. Like, I think in the World Cup, they used him very effectively because he was in the knockout stages. He was the bench hooker. But the way they came on the second half, they used him very effectively. Both in the scrums, he was good, and also in open play and his line out throwing as well. As I've been almost a revelation, I have to say, since he came into the box squad. An excellent player. So I think we're both in agreement there. One thing I would say, actually, going back to tight head prop just a wee bit. I think, honourable mention to Van Son Kok as well, because, Frans Malherbe, he's a very good scrummager and he works hard around the pitch, but in terms of his ball carrying, he's not the most effective prop ball carrier you'll ever see. Whereas Kok is a bit better at that department, but also Kok did brilliantly as the impact player off the bench, especially against Wales and against England. Even though the scrum was on top against England, he really pushed it. And also, I think against Wales in that semi-final, it was really the last 20 where the South African pack started to get the upper hand in that match. And he was a big part of that, so that's a mention there. But yeah, I think we're agreeing on 1 and 2. I would like to make one. Definitely. Sorry, I would like to make one honourable mention for the number 1 berth out after Mako Vunipola, and some might laugh at this, but maybe Rory Sutherland to Scotland, because he's done very well in the Six Nations. Has proved himself to be an excellent forward. I mean, I don't think he's among the world's best yet. Don't get me wrong, but he in terms of form, I'd say he's becoming a good player. So
yeah. with you coming from the Scottish perspective, I guess I could put my Welsh perspective on it. I actually think Wales are lacking some quality forwards, props especially. I think that Rob Evans has not been himself for a couple of years. Ken Owens, in this year's Six Nations, his line-out throwing was horrendous. He's fantastic for Scarlets. He's a brilliant leader, great lad, but he has not been on top form. Samson Lee, he didn't really get a sniff with Warren Gatland near the end, but hopefully he'll get some more time. Rhys Carey, who was at Saracens, what's happened to him? I'm not too sure. Elliot Dee looks like an exciting player coming through, and Leon Brown as well, but again, no one at the level here. But Wales does feel like we are lacking that quality at the front of the scrum, that's for sure.
Yeah. That's fair enough. And I think, there's other teams that are, sort of lacking a bit in terms of like that world-class front row. I mean, even New Zealand, Joe Moody, I mean, he was excellent in 2015, of course, but past couple of years, I think he's lost his mojo a bit there. So I think long term, I wouldn't be surprised if New Zealand look to a new loose head. But who that will be, we'll see once this pandemic's all over and we can go back to normal. So I think we're agreed on the front row of Mako, Mako Vunipola, Malcolm Marks, and Franz Malherbe right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so second row, who would you go for?
I would go for Eden Etzebeth, an absolute man mountain. Honestly, if he ran at me on the pitch, I think I'd be dropping the kids off at the pool, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah. I think I would, because he is massive, but he's so impactful in play. Moved to Toulon last summer, of course, after the World Cup, and had a decent season over there. And with South Africa, he's now that leader. He's also a fantastic option in the line-out. Around the park, he's very good with the ball in his hands. And again, just that brute force to get over the gain line, to be dirty, to be horrible, to be a menace to play against. I just think he honestly is the perfect rugby player for his position. He's agile, but he's strong. He's tall, but he's quick. He's got it all, in my opinion. And that's why he has got to be in my team.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if this is going in the World Cup, I think you have to tip the balance to him over Brodie Retallick right now. And yeah, I think I agree with everything you've said there. I think also what impressed me most is his tackling and the way he's managed to get the choke tackle spot on. There was times he was just holding players up and enough time for his teammates to go in and choke the opposition attackers, pardon me. And his defensive play in general for a second row is up there with the best of them, as well as, of course, his ball carrying. Yeah. We know what he can do at the line out, so I think no arguments there. The other second row position, this is a bit of a contentious one. For me, it's probably between Sam Whitelock, Maro Itoje, or Alan Wynne-Jones. I mean, one of those three.
I think you know what I'm going to say.
Lou Diager. I know what you're going to say, yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's Alan Wynne-Jones. Probably a little bit biased, yes, but I'll put my case out there. He's been probably the best player for Wales over the past probably 5 years. He's been a leader. He has been not just a leader for Wales, but for the Ospreys when there was talk of that merger again with the Scarlets. He came out, spoke very vocally, but spoke very well about it. Was very professional in the way that he did that. On the pitch, he leads from the front line. You wouldn't expect anything from anyone that he wouldn't be willing to do himself. He's such a leader, and with the success we've had over the last few years, I think him becoming captain after Sam Warburton was the best thing possible, because then we saw the best out of Sam Warburton as well. And so him having that role as captain, I think has really grown him as a player. He's only 33. I say only 33, but I still think he's got another 3 years.
He's 34 now.
Is he 34? Yeah. I still think he's got another 3 years in him.
Yeah, I mean, Wayne.
I think that.
I mean, Wayne Pivac was talking about him going to the next World Cup, which would be some feat. But I mean, to be honest, the way he's playing, he's been playing the past year. He's probably been arguably playing the best rugby he's ever played for Wales, which is saying something considering how good a player he already was. I mean, I was I had my doubts about him like before the 2017 Lions tour because I thought he'd lost his mojo, but he's got it back to better than ever. He had a very, very good World Cup. Was very unlucky, I thought, with that penalty, which in the end led towards the South African getting the penalty that won the semi-final for South Africa that game. Because he got a bit isolated, although it wasn't entirely his fault as to why he got Francois Lowe got on top of him because he wasn't supported quickly enough. But I mean, apart from that, no, his work rate, his tackling, his carrying, his leadership, even in the Six Nations when Wales haven't done well, he's still up there with the best of them. I think he got 30 plus tackles in that match in Dublin against Ireland, which is absolutely like a phenomenal feat for a second row. So he's just, I mean, but the thing is impressing me most about him is just he's always there, even if he maybe gives the odd penalty away now and then. He's just always in opponents' faces. He's always knowing that you're making sure his presence is there and just basically telling his opposite number or whoever's at the breakdown at the time or whatever the situation is. I am here. I am not going to let you have an easy match whatsoever. And you're letting his opponents know that they're going to have to work bloody hard if they want to get past him. And that's what I think. So I think I'm just going to give the edge to him as well. And if he, I mean, but no, I think like the other contenders, I mean, Sam Whitelock, I mean, obviously we all know his talents and what he's capable of. But again, I think by his standards, he's not been at his best and maybe past his best. I'll be honest with you. But Alan Wynn's just like I say, just keeps going and. I think right now he would be up there with among the first choices for any team in the world. I mean, he'd walk into an All Black side pretty much straight away. So yeah, I'll give you that. I'll give you Alan Wynne there.
I do think Itoje does deserve an honourable mention. I think that he is still fairly young. I think he's in his mid-20s, something like that, maybe. 25.
Yeah, 25. About that. Yeah, he's about that. Yeah.
Yeah, 25, so he's still got a long time to go. He's certainly going to be captain material at some point for England, you'd assume, at some point in the future. He's a fantastic ball carrier, very, very powerful. But I just think that Alan Wynne has done that a little bit more in the game. One little thing on Alan Wynne to finish off with about him is his ability to talk to the ref. I think he's one of the best in the world at it. I think he's so good. He's polite, but there's something about him that he knows when to talk and when not to talk, and that makes a massive difference. Like, when Wales played against England, I think last year at the Millennium Stadium, the comparison between him talking to the ref and I think it was Owen Farrell who was captain trying to talk to the ref was ridiculous. Like, you could see who the ref wanted to talk to and who he didn't want to talk to straight away. And I think that's a massive quality to have in a player because that can make a difference between shifting a ref's focus to one area of the game and taking away from the area that you don't want him to focus on.
Yeah, I mean, I see that point. I mean, I particularly, knowing referee myself, don't like it always when players do that. I mean, I don't mind a bit of constructive feedback, but again, I mean, understand they're at the highest level. You want to try and get an upper hand where you can. But I think a bigger thing with that particular game you're talking about was just his quality in his play compared to Owen Farrell that day. Because I remember the second half of that match, Owen Farrell more or less fell to pieces because he was kicking balls out in the full. He wasn't direct. He wasn't getting his back line moving forward. He wasn't directing things from 10 as well. And whereas Alman Jones in his performance in his position, he was just doing what he always does, showing a great engine, making sure he was the first to every breakdown when he could, and just showing a great example as a leader. So I think, that was the Tim point in that game. But no, I think your points are very fair there about the refs thing. I mean, again, being a referee myself, I've got a bit of a, I don't know, like I've got a bit of a somewhere in the middle on that one. But yeah, I'll take your point.
Yeah. Awesome.
So on to back row now. This was a difficult one for me. I've got a fair few contenders for, and I know who my number 8 is, but the flankers I'm not too sure about. So do you want to say who you think?
Yeah, so in the number 6 shirt I went with Peter Steph du Toit. I think he won World Player of the Year last year, didn't he?
He did.
If I'm correct in thinking. So for me, that just kind of answers your question, really. He's so good at the World Cup. He was probably one of the best players in South Africa's team. Just his ball carrying, his power, his ability to get over the gain line, to drag players onto him, and then that frees up the likes of Colby, of Pollard, of whoever to do their magic and to let them dictate the game. And again, he gets on with his work quietly. He doesn't make a fuss about it. He just gets on with it. He works hard and he gets the job done. And so for me, there's no question that Peter Steph Dutoit has to go into this team.
Yeah, I mean, it's tackling as well. He tackles like, a ton of bricks. Like you'd be probably like, I think the description Jeremy Guscott gave when Philippe Sella tackled back in the day was it was like a crane being hit. It's like a crane hit on his telephone box, and I think Peter Steph Dutoit does that, and then some with his tackling. So yeah, agree with you there, and he does. He's got an excellent work rate, great engine as well. I think got to give shout outs to, of course, Tom Curry and Sam Underhill. If you want them somewhere in this back row, I'm not entirely sure because they deserve a mention. I think who else? I don't know. I mean, Saya
on the list,
Saya Kolisi, I think, deserves an honourable mention as well, just because the way he captained South Africa to the World Cup. He was excellent there. But I mean, I also want to stress this point here, even though to folk who are a bit more, maybe not as savvy about this. I know a lot of you probably are. Is that South Africa, they have a thing where they play the open side at number 6 and the blind side at number 7. The rest of the world's the other way around. So just wanted to get that out there. But what do you think? I think we'll agree with Steph Dutoit, but what about the 7 shirt?
There's a lot of good players out there at the minute. I mean, a couple of years ago, as a Welshman, I'd have said Justin Tipuric, because I think in the Open, he is an extremely exciting player. I still think he can be, but he's been a little bit quieter recently. It's a tough one. Can you play Curry at 7?
Yes.
Could that work? That's the question, isn't it? For me, I would probably say Tom Curry, but you've put someone really interesting down. Is this biased or is this a genuine opinion? That's what I want to know.
It's
or a bit of both.
Oh, it's probably a bit of bias, but I would put Hamish Watson definitely as a contender. I just think he's absolutely fantastic and doesn't always get the recognition he deserves. Just his work rate around the pitch, the way he carries. We greatly missed him at the World Cup when he suffered a bad injury, sadly, which I think I don't know if it would have huge difference to us going through or not, but it certainly was a big blow. And the Six Nations, he's just been absolutely fantastic. His work at the breakdown, his carrying, is getting around. I mean, that game against Italy, although I might have some saying, but it's Italy. But if you just watch his performance that game, it just typifies him. I mean, even two teams that were playing absolutely terrible rugby, horrible rugby, but he was just absolutely immense that game. Every breakdown, he was there. Every time he could break the gain line, he was doing it. He was clearing out as best he can. He was jackling. He was just absolutely everywhere. So, I mean, I think if he keeps this up and he stays fit, he is in with a good shout of being the Lions 7 next year, providing, of course, I mean, we're guessing that's still going ahead because it's next year, but again, a lot of uncertainty right now. But I mean, I would at the moment have him. I personally have him as my 7, but Curry and Underhill definitely very worthy shouts, especially with Underhill's performance against New Zealand in. I thought he was excellent that game, and also he was man of the match against Scotland in the Six Nations as well. Underhill, and he on a horrible wet day, he played the conditions really well and made the impact as best he could in that game. So yeah, but I'm going with Watson because bias.
Okay.
Biased.
That's cool. That's fine. The only other thing I wanted to mention was in the number 6 jersey. Not in the category of world class quite yet, but I think Aaron Wainwright has been incredible for the past 18 months. I think that he has burst onto the scene. He's shown no fear, just gone for it. And the work rate that he puts in the loose, but also at the breakdown, is incredible. And I'm really excited to see how he develops over the next few years. But he's not quite world class yet. But Warren Gatland did an interview 6 months ago, said, I think it was Hugo Monnier, asked him, who could be a surprise shout for the Lions, and he said Aaron Wainwright could be a surprise inclusion. And if he keeps going the way he is, he may be a player to take. Give him some games against the provisional teams, not against New Zealand. Probably a bit too soon for that, but he's still fantastic and deserves a mention.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to put him up against. He has to be playing against New Zealand if he's going to be in contenders for the best in the world. But that's the thing. I thought he was quite hard done by when he was dropped after was it the Ireland game, the Six Nations. I thought he was a bit.
Yeah.
I thought because I didn't think he had a bad game that game. No, I thought I was a bit harsh there, but I think he's a very, shown at the World Cup what a talented player he is, and I think he is one for the future, but not just yet. And I think he needs to. There's some areas he still needs to work on a little bit, but I think he is definitely one down the road. And if he stays fit and he keeps working hard, I think he could be on the plane to. Well, I think he will be on the plane to Lions 2021. Still. When rugby gets back into starting again, there's still rugby to be played, so we'll see what happens there. But okay, so so 6 du Toit, 7. You can disagree with me if you want.
Hamish Watson. Okay. I'm happy to put Watson in. I've put Alan Wynne in, so
I know there's going to be a few English folks saying I'm bloody nuts because. After Curry and Underhill's performances against New Zealand, but hey ho, I'm sticking by my opinion there. You're entitled to disagree. And number 8, I've just thought one contender, just basically off the back of his World Cup, and that's Duane Vermeulen. What do you think?
Okay, I can see where you're coming from. I can absolutely see that, but. There's one name which just I can't ignore, Talupe Faletau. Now, before you start rolling your eyes or smirking, let me explain why. Yes, he's been injured for a heck of a long time, and he played a little bit in this year's Six Nations, which is good. He's played a little bit for Bath this season as well. His first game back for Bath after breaking his arm, he gets a man of the match performance, scores a try and gets a try assist. That's just ridiculous. The guy honestly would walk into any side in the world and play number 8 if he's fit. Absolutely would. I 100% believe that. The only person who can maybe challenge him that we haven't spoken about is Billy Vunipola when he's fit. But I think Faletau in the loose and his tackling, his work rate is just incredible. When he burst onto the team in 2011, it was like a revelation for us, And it's just so unfortunate he's been so injured over the times. But I think that he definitely deserves a mention. I can understand where you're coming with Duane Vermeulen, had an incredible World Cup, has played a lot more rugby than Faletau, but I do think Faletau deserves a mention. But please, come at me, roast me, tell me what you think.
He's hardly played the past couple of years, Faletau. He's only come back in this Six Nations, and again, I thought by his normal standards, he was pretty average and pretty quiet by compared to what we know he can do. On past form, I'd say maybe, but at the present, I can't say him just now. Okay. Billy Vunipola, I think there's a case there, but I'm of the view of him. Whilst he's good at what he does with his carrying, he's a bit too one-dimensional because you know what he's going to do. But he doesn't. He's a very strong character. He'll take drawing tacklers, maybe make the odd offload. But I think, I think he's just a bit, and he can obviously defend pretty well as well for a big guy. But I think apart from that, he's just a bit too one-dimensional. Whereas Duane Vermeulen showed himself to be just like a powerful ball carrier, a terrific athlete. I thought he was exceptional that World Cup. That performance he produced in the final was probably up there with among the best back row performances you'll see in a World Cup final ever. He was just absolutely, he was so good in that match, and he just showed himself like the way he carries, the way he plays, the way he shows, like he's shown great leadership. He's matured a lot, I think, in the past few years, and looks. Because he wasn't in the South African team for a while, and he came back just before the World Cup, to my knowledge, and he's got himself right back up to high standards again.
Yeah.
Albeit long run, I don't know how much longer he's going to be about because he's 33 now. So he could make the next Lions tour, possibility, but who knows? We'll see. But I mean, right now, I'd have to say Vermeulen.
Yeah, my Welshness inside of me is kind of crumbling to pieces at the minute. But I think we do have to go off players who have been playing. Obviously, ability-wise, I think Faletau's one of the best in the world. But has he shown that over the past couple of years? You'd have to say no. Mentions to people like Sergio Parise. I know he doesn't play for Italy anymore, but he's still world class and is obviously been Italy's best player for the past 10 years. But at number 8, a year ago maybe, you would have picked him for many teams in the world. We've spoken about Billy Vunipola. I think maybe Keelan Doris in the future could be really exciting, the Irish number 8.
Yeah, I've got one more mention, which we haven't mentioned throughout this, which definitely deserves a mention. Gregory Aldrit, the French number 8. I thought he was was absolutely excellent at the Six Nations. He was excellent at the World Cup as well. I think he's actually going to be he's got a massive future ahead of him. He just his ball carrying, his work rate at the breakdown as well. I just thought he was probably France's best player. The Six Nations, which is still to be completed. In the forwards, just a case of everything he does, and as I said, his carrying, his work rate at the breakdown, his jackling, his tackling as well. I think he's got the potential to be up there with the best number 8s in the world in a couple of years' time, and I think he'll be close to a superstar at the next World Cup in France, if he stays fit, of course. And sadly, he's got he's comes from Scottish heritage, so gutted we missed out on him.
Does it hurt a little bit more?
A little bit more.
Yeah,
a little bit, because I just I remember he scored 2 tries against us. When we played Scotland when we played France in Paris last year, and even though they were basically pushover tries off of scrums, I thought the rest of the time he was on the pitch that day, he looked like a player. And then in the warm up game where France humped us, I think it was in Nice or Lille, I can't remember the stadium. He had an excellent game that day, so I think he's got a real ability about him. Although it was his choice, because the SRU apparently did phone him up and asked him if he wanted to come to play for Scotland, but he chose to stay in France. So, his own choice. But you'll regret it, Gregory, unless he wins the World Cup. I'll shut my mouth.
When Scotland wins the next World Cup, you'll regret it, eh?
Yeah, that's
say that. But yeah, I think that's the team. I'll quickly run through who we did pick. Because I got it here. So Mako Vunipola, Malcolm Marks and Franz Maleb, Esterbeth and Alan Wynne-Jones. Then we had Peter Steph-Toy, Hamish Watson, and then Dwayne Vermeulen. It's a decent team. Let us know in the comments your team as well. We want to hear that one. We've done the backs. We've done the forwards. Who'd you pick as the coach for this team?
Well, I think you have to go for reputation, World Cup Rassi Erasmus, yes. So go for Rassi Erasmus there. I think we're in agreement. The captain, I think I know who you'd go for.
Oh, I'm going to let you say first.
Okay. It has to be a forward, doesn't it?
There's only one contender. That's what I'm saying.
Dwayne Vermeulen. I'll go with Alan Wynne. Yes, I'll go with Alan Wynne.
Good lad. Right answer. Yeah, I'd go for Alan Wynne as well. But yeah, really good forwards and backs, good set of players there, and that's our team. So yeah, that's our team.
Okay, perfect. Got anything else you want to add? Do you want to do the bench maybe before we wrap up, or see if we can get a bench?
Yeah, we can do the bench.
Even though
a couple of people we could throw in.
Okay. I think just basically based on, we'll go with the front row first. I think based on the World Cup. I mean, because Malcolm Marks is starting, but I think you'd have to put in both South African props there, of Stephen Kitchenoff and Vincent Koch, who were the obviously reserve props for South Africa. At hooker, though, who would you go for?
It's a tough one.
Jamie George.
Who would I pick?
Maybe.
Yeah, Jamie George would probably be the front runner. The reality is Scotland don't have a world-class hooker. Wales don't have a world-class hooker. Ireland probably don't at the minute. France don't either, really. So, yeah, Jamie George on the bench. I'm happy to put him in.
Or Dane Coles, good, potentially good impact player.
I'm going to stick with Jamie George.
Okay. I would give the nod to Dane Coles, but I'll give you Jamie George there. Yeah, second row. I'd probably go with Maro or with Brody Retallick, one of the two of them. Who would you?
Maro for me. Okay. Maro Itoje for me. Offers that little bit more.
It's kind of weird how we've gone from like New Zealand, they just had one defeat, and then suddenly most of their team, our best team here, aren't New Zealanders anymore. So,
but I don't think that's just one game. I think for the past 2 years, maybe they just haven't been the same team. The team that won the 2015 World Cup and the 2011, that period, that 4 years, they were probably the best national team we've ever seen. And just that success that they had. I think Carter, Malnonu, Dag at fullback, and then you think of Milamu, hooker, and all the rest, McCall. It's just an insane team. And they just haven't quite had the same fear factor that they had back in 2014-15. Because when Wales plays them at the Millennium Stadium now, I don't think, we're going to win. I think we've got a chance here. Back in 2015, did I think we had a chance? Absolutely not. I thought we'd get smashed by 20 points. And Scotland would feel the same now. I think you gave them a good game at Murrayfield. Was it last year?
Years ago,
yeah. So they don't have the same fear factor, but they still got quality players. But that golden generation just isn't quite there anymore.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I think they're going to go through a little bit of a transition now again, because there are just, like I said, the 2015 team, you can go through that entire team. There's not any standout weakness there at all, anywhere. They're just probably the most complete team I think I've ever seen. I have to say, right up at the very least up there with the very best teams we've ever seen, as you said. After that, you just know there's areas you can target. And Kieran Reid, whilst I think he's a very good rugby player, I don't think he's not on Richie McCaw's level as a captain at all. I mean, he tries to be sometimes, but it just Richie McCaw as a captain, just like, sort of, even if he was maybe getting penalised sometimes, you just knew he is the captain, he's there. And Kieran Reid's a little bit quieter. He doesn't, sort of show as much leadership in key moments. He kind of still does his thing and it's just missing that edge. And I think that was a big thing that cost them at the World Cup, like against England when they were on the back foot for majority of that game. They just needed someone to sort of put the close up the hatches, just to keep things calm, sort of think, okay, we need to be more accurate in our kicking game, we need to try and calm things down, steady the ship and work our way slowly up the field. And they just didn't have that, and England just kept putting pressure after pressure on them, and they couldn't cope with it. But yeah, I think second row picks, I think I'll agree with Maro Itoje, I think there. So back row, this is, I think you have to go with either Curry or Underhill here, since
definitely.
So
100%.
Which one of you?
And then
which one of them?
Oh, which one? Both of them are fantastic players, but personally, I'd put Tom Curry.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll agree. I'll go with that. Any reason? Just
slightly ahead of Underhill in my pecking order. Only just slightly ahead. I think he can do a little bit more in the loose.
Yeah, that's fair enough. He's a little bit more athletic as well than. He can carry well, but he's a little bit more athletic, and whereas Underhill's a bit more, a wee bit bulkier. Scrum half. We started obviously with Faf de Klerk, but who would be the reserve scrum half for you?
Dupont, for me. I think Antoine Dupont coming off the bench with that pace then forwards gassing and breathing for their lives. It's an absolute nightmare for them. Antoine Dupont, just a live wire. Faf de Klerk's a bit of a different player, would have offered that physicality. Dupont comes in and just pace and trickery. He'd be a fantastic replacement for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'd go with Dupont. The back replacement. I don't know about this one. With you go with a 10 who can play 12, or what would you? I don't know. What would you go for, and who would you go for?
It's a tough one. Owen Farrell is an option because he can play both positions, but is he a good option off the bench? So if you're thinking tactically about the game itself, him coming off the bench, does he make that much of a difference to a team? Does he offer that creativity? Probably not, but he can play both positions. If you're just thinking of a 10, I think someone like Finn Russell coming off the bench is really, really exciting. Again, with the ability to throw the ball about, defense is more tired. I think that's why he'd be so good for the Lions. Coming off the bench for the Lions, I think that'd be really, really exciting. So I'm going to say Finn Russell as the back option. I'm sure he could do a decent job at fullback if he really had to.
I don't know about him at fullback, just a whole different ball game. I mean, maybe if he was running up to the line, he could cut in a bit more, but the fullback, there's a lot of positional things that I don't think Finn would enjoy so much, and times he would be a bit further away from the action than he's used to. I'm going to go with pragmatism over Maverick here. I'm going to go with Farrell.
Okay, I actually want to debate this because Farrell, for me, I think he's a fantastic player. He can play both positions. But him coming off the bench in a game where you need something to happen, I don't think he'd offer as much as Finn.
Well, yeah, but...
Personally.
It depends what you're looking for, really. I mean, sort of if you're going for him in Farrell over coming on for Pollard, for argument's sake, you're more or less in a lot of ways getting the same player, but except Pollard can tackle a bit better. But I think I don't know, just as I think he could be a good player off the bench, depending on things how you want to. If you want to shore things up with a bit of game management, if you can bring him on as well and play him as the 12, as the sign of second, like outside of Pollard, just to keep the opposition on the back foot, and with a kicking game maybe, and we can debate his tackling, his positional sense of defending. Farrell is normally quite good. It's just it's just when he gets to defenders, he's a bit of a mixed bag. Again, I just edge Farrell, but I don't know.
Okay, yeah,
I'll take
a Scottishman voting for an Englishman.
If you're wanting I was going to say, if you're wanting a bit of excitement near the end and to run around defenders when they're a bit tired, go with Finn there. So I mean, I'm easy.
Yeah, so I think that's our team then. Let us know in the comments.
One more back.
One more, go on then. One more back.
Well, we've got the two flat half backs kind of, and now the
of course.
Towards the outside back.
Liam Williams.
No, I mean, we missed out someone in our when we were chatting about the back line the other day. Probably Mapimpi would be a candidate. The South African winger, 14 tries and 14 tests for South Africa last I checked. I stand to be corrected there, but that try scoring ratio is difficult to argue with. I'd say. Have you got any? Would you still go for Liam Williams, or would you go for?
The only reason I was really thinking about Liam Williams is he's comfortable playing on both wings and at fullback, so he can cover those positions. Mapimpi for the try scoring ability, yes. Again, it depends what you're going for. Are you going for that try scorer, or are you thinking who can cover those positions? That record of 14 tries is very difficult to argue with. The Japanese winger, what's his name? Matsushima, is that his name?
Yeah.
The one, Matsushima. He had a fantastic World Cup, so I think he deserves a mention, possibly on the bench. He was just electric. But again, this team is always going to be affected by World Cup winners.
Yeah, I was going to say
that's how it is.
That Japanese fullback was pretty good. I can't remember his name. I thought he'd be a contender as well. Maybe Damien Penaud contender. like could cover? He can cover.
Not quite yet for me.
Okay.
Not quite yet for me. I don't quite think he's there. I'm happy to go with Mapimpi.
Okay, we'll go with that.
World Cup winner, incredible try record.
Aye.
I think he deserves to be in the team.
Aye. Or it might be 16 out of 16, but I just remember reading it was the same number of tests he played.
Still incredible, isn't it? It's still pretty good.
Yeah. So 14 out of 40 and 16 out of 60. I'll leave you in the comments to correct us there if you know. Okay, so are you happy enough with that team?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, very happy with that team.
Okay, look. So I think that's us then. Have we got anything else you want to add, Brandon, before we call it a day?
I think, just guys, let us know in the comments your teams. If you were the coach, who do you pick? Obviously, our team is right because we're the perfect coaches and we should be coaching the Lions. But that is sarcasm, just to clarify. But yeah, let us know in the comments your team.
Okay, look, that's perfect. As Brandon said, just leave the comments, and thanks so much for watching, guys. Stay safe, and stay safe, enjoy yourself, try and keep busy, take care. Okay,
there we go.
There we are.
Perfect.